Billionaire's $50,000 watch broke in the rain. Experts couldn't fix it, but a barefoot 10-year-old street vendor's daughter could. 20 minutes, perfect repair, no charge.
This is incredible. How did you know?
My grandpa
3 months
taught
later,
me.
he returned with
He must be
adoption
very
papers.
wise.
He is.
Why? What did he discover about this remarkable child? This story will restore your faith in humanity. Welcome to our channel, Truth Turns Stories. If this story touches your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's start the video. Sometimes the most extraordinary moments happen in the most ordinary places. Sometimes a single act of kindness can change everything. And sometimes the person who saves you isn't wearing a cape. They're just a child with gentle hands and a heart full of hope. The rain came down hard that afternoon. It hammered the tin roofs of the marketplace like 1,000 tiny drums. Vendors shouted and scrambled everywhere. They pulled plastic sheets over their fruits. They dragged boxes under awnings. Everyone moved fast, trying to protect what little they had from the angry sky. But one small figure didn't move at all. 10-year-old Maya sat perfectly still behind her father's broken vegetable cart. Her dark hair was getting wet. Her thin dress was soaked through, but she didn't seem to notice. Her tiny fingers worked carefully on something small and delicate. A watch, not hers. It belonged to a stranger. Just minutes before, a man had stopped near their cart. He wore an expensive suit, now spotted with rain. His shoes probably cost more than everything in the marketplace combined. He was staring at his wrist with frustration burning in his eyes. The watch had stopped. Water had gotten inside. "It's ruined," he muttered to no one in particular. His voice was tight with anger. A $50,000 piece, completely destroyed. The vendors nearby glanced at him and looked away. Nobody wanted trouble with rich men in fancy suits. Nobody wanted to get involved. But Maya looked up. "I can fix it," she said softly. The man turned. His name was Richard Calloway, though Maya didn't know that. She didn't know he owned buildings that touched the clouds. She didn't know his face appeared in magazines and newspapers. She only saw a frustrated stranger with a broken thing. And broken things were something she understood. Richard stared at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. This tiny girl in worn clothes, sitting behind a cart of wilting vegetables, claiming she could fix a luxury timepiece that had stumped professional jewelers. But something in her steady gaze made him pause. There was no fear in her eyes. No desperation, just calm certainty, a quiet confidence that seemed impossible for someone so young and so poor. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the rain making him impatient. Whatever the reason, Richard slowly removed the watch from his wrist. He handed it to her without a word. Maya took it gently, like receiving a small wounded bird. She reached into a tin box beside her and pulled out tools so tiny they looked like toys. Tweezers, miniature screwdrivers, a small magnifying glass held together with tape. Then she went to work. Her fingers moved with impossible precision. She opened the back of the watch carefully. She examined the delicate gears inside. She dried each tiny piece with a soft cloth. She adjusted springs thinner than human hair. Richard watched in silence, forgetting about the rain soaking his expensive jacket. 20 minutes later, Maya looked up. She smiled softly and handed back the watch. It was ticking perfectly. Richard's mouth fell open. He held the watch to his ear, listening to its gentle rhythm. He looked at the timepiece, then at Maya, then at the cart selling vegetables, then at her father in the corner, coughing weakly into a rag, then at the cardboard box behind them that seemed to be their home. "Who taught you this?" he whispered. Maya's smile grew warmer but also sadder. Her eyes sparkled with memory. "My mother," she said simply, "before she went to heaven." Richard Calloway didn't know what to say. For once in his powerful life, words failed him completely. He reached into his wallet and pulled out money, far too much money. But Maya gently pushed his hand back. "Helping is its own payment," she said. "That's what Mama always said. Richard walked away that afternoon with his watch running and his heart troubled. He climbed into his waiting car. He drove back to his world of towers and meetings and millions. But something had shifted inside him. He couldn't stop thinking about those hands. That smile. Those eyes full of impossible hope. He couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just witnessed something rare, something pure, something the world had almost forgotten existed. But this was only the beginning, because Maya's small act of kindness was about to set something much bigger in motion, something that would change both their lives forever. Maya's world was small. It stretched only from the vegetable cart to the charity school 2 miles away. It included the tin-roofed shelter where she and her father slept. It held the few tools her mother had left behind. That was everything. That was her whole universe. But even though her world was small, the weight she carried was enormous. Her father's name was Arun. Once upon a time, he had been someone important. He had owned a small watch repair shop in the nicer part of the city. People came from far away to have him fix their treasured timepieces. His hands had been steady. His eyes had been sharp. His reputation had been spotless. That was before the sickness came. The illness crept in slowly at first, a tremor in his fingers, a cough that wouldn't leave. Then his hands began shaking so badly he couldn't hold the tiny screwdrivers anymore. He dropped watches. He made mistakes. Customers stopped coming. The shop closed. The savings disappeared. And everything Arun had built over 30 years crumbled like sandcastles in the rain. Now he sold vegetables in the crowded marketplace. His trembling hands could barely count the coins customers gave him. Sometimes he gave too much change. Sometimes he couldn't remember prices. The proud watchmaker had become a confused old man who coughed into rags and apologized too much. Maya did everything else. She woke up every morning at 4 o'clock when the sky was still dark. She walked to the wholesale market to buy the freshest vegetables before other vendors arrived. She sorted the produce carefully, hiding the bruised ones at the bottom. She set up the cart. She cleaned their tiny shelter. She cooked whatever simple food they could afford. Then she walked 2 miles to the charity school that let her attend for free. She sat in crowded classrooms with torn books and broken chairs. She soaked up every word the teacher said like a sponge desperate for water. She was always the first to answer questions, always the last to leave. After school, she walked 2 miles back. She helped customers at the cart while her father rested. She smiled at everyone. She remembered their names. She asked about their families. And when neighbors brought broken things, clocks that had stopped, radios that crackled, music boxes that no longer played, Maya fixed them with her mother's tools. She never charged a single coin. Mama said helping is its own payment, she would tell them. And she meant it. The other vendors in the marketplace watched her with wonder. They whispered among themselves, "So young," they said, "so capable, so gentle. How could a 10-year-old carry so much responsibility without breaking? How could she smile so warmly when life had given her so little?" But they didn't see what happened at night. When darkness fell and her father finally slept, Maya would lie on her thin mat and let the tears come silently. She cried without making sounds because she didn't want Papa to hear. She dreamed of real schools with proper uniforms and new books. She dreamed of real beds with soft mattresses and warm blankets. She dreamed of medicine for her father that didn't come from expired charity bins. She dreamed of a life that didn't feel so heavy. But when morning came, she wiped her eyes. She took a deep breath. She got up and started again. She never complained, not once. She never begged on street corners like some children did. She never grew bitter. One day, a customer shortchanged them badly. He took vegetables worth 50 coins, but only paid 20. Maya noticed immediately, but instead of arguing, she simply smiled and wished him well. Her father watched in confusion. Later, when the cart was quiet, he asked her something that had been bothering him for months. "Why aren't you angry, my child? Why don't you fight back against people who treat us unfairly? Maya looked at him with those wise old eyes in her young face. "Being angry won't buy us rice, Papa," she said softly. "But being kind keeps our hearts warm, and warm hearts never feel completely poor." Arun had no response to that. He just stared at his daughter like she was a miracle he didn't deserve. Maya's goodness was quiet. It didn't shout or demand attention. It simply existed, like sunlight, like clean water, like the air everyone breathed without thinking. But quiet things can echo loudly, and Maya's kindness was about to reach ears she never expected, because somewhere across the city, a powerful man was still thinking about a broken watch and the tiny hands that fixed it. 3 months passed since that rainy afternoon in the marketplace. The seasons shifted. The city moved on with its endless noise and hurry. Millions of people lived their busy lives without thinking twice about vegetable carts or broken watches. But Richard Calloway was not one of those people. Richard Calloway could not forget. He had tried. Heaven knows he had tried so hard to push that memory away. He ran a technology empire that spanned 3 continents. He sat in boardrooms with glass walls overlooking the city. He made decisions worth millions of dollars before most people finished their morning coffee. His calendar was packed with meetings. His phone never stopped buzzing. His life was full of important things and important people, demanding his important attention. But every single time he glanced at his wrist, his expensive watch was still ticking perfectly. And every single time he heard that gentle rhythm, he saw her face. Those steady eyes, those tiny capable hands, that soft smile that expected nothing in return. Who was this child? Where did she come from? How did she learn to fix something that had stumped professional jewelers? The questions haunted Richard like ghosts that refused to leave. Finally, he stopped fighting the curiosity. He called his private investigators, the best in the business. He gave them the location of the marketplace and described the vegetable cart and the coughing father and the small girl with golden hands. Then he waited. What they found broke something inside him. Maya's mother had been a woman named Priya. She had not been an ordinary person. Priya had trained in Switzerland at one of the finest watchmaking schools in the world. She had been a master horologist, someone who understood timepieces the way poets understand words. Her hands had worked on watches worth more than houses. Her reputation had sparkled across Europe. Then she met Arun during a visit to her homeland. She fell in love completely. She gave up everything, the fancy career, the European life, the money and the prestige. She chose love instead. She moved into his small shop and helped him build his business. They were happy. They had Maya. Life was simple but full. Then Priya got sick. 2 years ago, she closed her eyes for the final time, leaving behind handwritten repair manuals filled with her knowledge. And she left behind a daughter who had memorized every single page. But the investigators discovered something else, something that made Richard's blood run cold. Arun was dying too. The coughing was not just a cold. His lungs were failing. The doctors had given him months, maybe less. And he had told no one about this, especially not Maya. He carried that terrible secret alone, pretending each day was normal, knowing each day brought him closer to leaving his daughter completely alone in the world. Richard had to see for himself. He went to the marketplace wearing simple clothes, no expensive suit this time, no shiny shoes. He blended into the crowd and watched from a distance. He saw Maya haggle with a pharmacy owner for cheaper medicine. He saw her count coins carefully, coming up short, her shoulders dropping with disappointment. He saw her give her own small lunch to a stray dog who looked hungrier than she did. He saw her fix an old woman's hearing aid for nothing but a simple thank you and a pat on the head. His chest tightened until he could barely breathe. That night, Richard sat alone in his enormous empty penthouse. He stared at the city lights below. He thought about his own life, the money, the success, the buildings with his name on them, and he realized something painful. He had everything the world said mattered, but he had no one to protect, no one to care for, no one who made his heart feel full. He picked up the phone and called his lawyers, not for business this time. "I want to know," he said quietly, "how to adopt a child." The lawyer on the other end paused in surprise. Richard Calloway had never mentioned children before, never mentioned family, never mentioned anything beyond profit margins and expansion plans. But Richard was not looking for an heir to his empire. He was looking for something he had lost decades ago, when his own childhood had been cold and lonely. He was looking for someone worth protecting, someone worth loving, someone whose quiet goodness deserved a chance to bloom. And he had found her. Now he just had to figure out how to save her before it was too late. Richard Calloway did not arrive with fanfare or cameras or a parade of assistants. He came to the marketplace on a quiet Tuesday morning carrying only two things: an umbrella to shield against the drizzling rain, and a folder filled with documents that would change everything. He found Arun first. The old man was sitting behind the vegetable cart, coughing softly into a worn handkerchief. Maya had gone to school. This was intentional. Richard needed to speak to the father alone before anything else could happen. Some conversations were too important for young ears. Richard sat down on an overturned crate beside the cart. Two men from completely different worlds, face to face among the cabbages and carrots. The billionaire in simple clothes, the dying watchmaker with trembling hands. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Richard began to talk. He explained everything. How Maya had fixed his watch that rainy day, how he could not forget her steady hands and kind eyes, how his investigators had uncovered the beautiful tragic story of Priya, the Swiss-trained horologist who chose love over fame, and how he knew about Aaron's illness, the secret Aaron had been carrying alone. The old man's eyes filled with tears. His greatest fear had been discovered. His deepest pain was now spoken aloud. But Richard did not stop there. He told Arun what he wanted to do. He wanted to adopt Maya legally. He wanted to fund her education at the finest schools. He wanted to make sure she never worried about money or medicine or tomorrow ever again. And he wanted to move Arun into a comfortable home where he could spend his remaining months in peace and dignity, surrounded by care, with his daughter by his side. The conversation was long. It was tearful. It was private. Two fathers talking about the only thing that truly mattered. A child's future, a child's happiness, a child's chance to become everything she deserved to be. When it finally ended, Arun was smiling, truly smiling. For the first time in years, the weight on his shoulders lifted, the fear in his heart melted away. "You will give her the world?" Arun whispered, his voice cracking. Richard shook his head gently. "No," he said. "She already carries the world inside her. I will just make sure it never crushes her." That afternoon, when Maya returned from school, she found her father and the stranger from the rain sitting together like old friends. She recognized Richard immediately, the watchman, the one whose timepiece she had fixed months ago. Why was he here? What was happening? They told her everything. The adoption papers, the new schools, the comfortable home, the promise that her father would be cared for properly, the future that was opening up before her like a flower blooming after a long winter. Maya did not celebrate. She did not jump with joy or shout with excitement. Instead, she walked slowly to her father and buried her face in his chest, and she wept. Deep, shaking sobs that came from somewhere ancient inside her. But these were different tears, not tears of sorrow or exhaustion. These were grateful tears, hopeful tears, tears that washed away years of silent struggling, tears that said thank you in ways words never could. Arun held his daughter close, stroking her hair, crying his own tears of relief. That winter, Arun passed away peacefully in a warm room with soft blankets and good medicine, and his daughter's hand in his. He left this world smiling, because he knew Maya was safe. He knew she was loved. He knew her future was bright. Years flew by like pages turning in a beautiful book. Maya grew up. She attended the finest schools. She studied with master horologists around the world. She learned everything her mother had known and more. She became renowned herself, restoring priceless timepieces from museums across every continent. But in every interview, journalists always ask the same question at the end. What is the secret to your success? And Maya would smile that same gentle smile from her childhood. The same smile she gave Richard on that rainy day. My mother taught me to fix things, she would say. My father taught me to endure. And a stranger reminded me that kindness is never invisible. The world sees everything. The world remembers everything. Especially the good we do when nobody is watching. And this is the truth she carried forever. The world rewards what it remembers, and it always remembers a good heart. Always.